After Jeļena Ostapenko lost to Taylor Townsend, the two exchanging sharp words, Townsend saying Ostapenko accusing her of having no class and no education.
The tennis world is reeling after Jeļena Ostapenko's shocking lifetime ban, but it's the explosive reaction from a fellow player that has completely stolen the spotlight. What began as a routine press moment quickly spiraled into a viral sensation, with fans across the globe replaying every word and gesture. The emotion, the shock, and the raw honesty behind the response have set social media ablaze. So, why did this reaction strike such a chord, and what does it reveal about the sport's future? Let's uncover the full story. Ostapenko's meltdown turns Townsend's upset into U.S. Open scandal, August 27, 2025. A hot New York afternoon, second round of the U.S. Open. Court 11 wasn't supposed to be the stage for a historic moment. It was meant to be routine. On one side stood Jeļena Ostapenko, seeded 25th, the fiery former French Open champion, whose reputation for power and unpredictability made her the heavy favorite. On the other side, Taylor Townsend, ranked 139 in the world, a player many doubted could hang with the big names in singles despite her dominance on the doubles circuit. For Townsend, this was not just another match. It was a chance to remind the tennis world that she was more than a doubles specialist. Yes, she had already conquered doubles, climbing to the world number one spot, securing multiple Grand Slam titles. But singles had always been her dream stage, the place she wanted to prove herself against the sport's biggest names. And from the very first ball, you could tell she had come ready to shock the world. Her serve was sharp, consistent, and full of confidence. Her returns cut through Ostapenko's pace like a knife, forcing the Latvian into uncomfortable positions. Every point Townsend won seemed to chip away at Ostapenko's composure, her frustration growing more visible with each missed shot and each roar from the American crowd. The first set was tense, a true battle of wills, but Townsend held firm. At 5-5, she broke through with fearless shot-making and closed the set 7-5. The second set, however, was something else entirely. It wasn't just good tennis, it was a storm. Townsend elevated her game to a level that left Ostapenko scrambling. The American read every ball, moved with lightning precision, and dominated rallies with a calm, unshakable confidence. Ostapenko, by contrast, unraveled. Errors piled up, her body language sagged, and the once assured favorite looked completely lost. By the time Townsend wrapped up the set 6-1, the upset was complete. The crowd erupted, roaring for the underdog who had just taken down a seeded former Grand Slam champion on home soil. It should have been a moment of pure celebration. Townsend had delivered the kind of story that makes tennis magical. A low-ranked American dismantling one of the sport's biggest names under the bright lights of the U.S. Open. Fans cheered, commentators praised, and Townsend's smile said it all until the handshake. Or rather, the lack of one. What happened at the net flipped the script entirely. Instead of offering a sportsmanlike gesture, Ostapenko exploded. Cameras zoomed in, microphones picked up every word, and the tennis world froze as her bitterness spilled out. In a sharp, cutting voice, Ostapenko told Townsend, "You have no class and no education." The crowd reacted instantly. Boos rained down, not the playful jeers of a tennis audience, but raw, furious disapproval that rattled the court. But she didn't stop there. Ostapenko doubled down, repeating her insult not once, not twice, but 3 times. "You have no education." Each repetition cut deeper, the words stinging not just because of what they implied, but because of who they were directed at. A Black American woman who had just worked tirelessly to claim one of the most important victories of her career. The venom in the delivery, the refusal to show grace in defeat, turned what should have been a shining moment for tennis into an ugly, unforgettable scandal. Fans booed louder, the sound echoing through the small court as Ostapenko stormed off, leaving Townsend standing in disbelief. There she was, fresh off the biggest singles win of her career, forced to process an insult meant to diminish everything she had just achieved. Yet Townsend, in that chaotic moment, showed the one thing Ostapenko had accused her of lacking: grace. And just when it seemed like the night couldn't twist any further, the spotlight turned. Because what Townsend did next not only silenced her critics, but also flipped the entire narrative. But how did Taylor Townsend respond in the face of public humiliation? Stay glued, because the Townsend response is where this story gets even more explosive. Taylor Townsend's powerful response that silenced the court. Reporters didn't waste a second after the match. The microphones went straight to Taylor Townsend, and everyone wanted to know how she felt after being publicly insulted in front of thousands. Her answer? Calm, steady, and surprisingly gracious. She shrugged and said, "It's competition. People get upset when they lose. Some people say bad things," but then she added something that revealed exactly who she is. With quiet strength, she explained, "There's no beef, but like you saw, I didn't back down, because you're not going to insult me, especially after I carried myself with nothing but respect." Think about that for a second. To be called uneducated on live television, to be mocked in front of a global audience, and still choose dignity instead of revenge, that takes composure most people could never manage. Many fans admitted later that they wouldn't have been able to stay calm in that moment. But Taylor did, and in doing so, she showed the world that character is louder than any insult hurled across a net. And yet, the story wasn't finished. Ostapenko's meltdown didn't come out of thin air. It was sparked by something unbelievably petty. According to her, everything began with one single point in the match, one tiny moment that spiraled into a storm. It wasn't about the quality of tennis, the scoreline, or even the loss itself. It was about a net cord. For those who don't watch tennis closely, here's what that means. Sometimes a shot clips the top of the net, but still trickles over to win the point. It's pure luck, and while there's no actual rule about it, there's a tradition. Players usually raise their hand or say sorry as a courtesy. Townsend didn't, and that was it. That was the spark that set Ostapenko ablaze. A simple sorry that wasn't even required became the excuse for one of the ugliest post-match moments the US Open crowd had ever witnessed. And instead of letting it go, Ostapenko doubled down. Later, she posted on Instagram to justify herself. But instead of repairing the damage, her words poured gasoline on the fire. She wrote that Townsend was very disrespectful for not apologizing after a net cord at a very decisive moment. Then came the line that had people's jaws dropping. If she plays in her homeland, it doesn't mean she can behave and do whatever she wants. Her homeland. Just 2 words, but they carried an unmistakable weight. To many, it sounded like Ostapenko was implying that Townsend's American identity gave her some kind of false license to ignore etiquette. The undertones weren't subtle, and they didn't sit well. The tennis community erupted. Naomi Osaka, who knows more than most about the struggles of being a black player in a predominantly white sport, spoke out. She pointed out how devastating and loaded it is to tell a black athlete they have no education. Her post reminded fans that tennis has a long and complicated history when it comes to race. From Althea Gibson breaking barriers in the 1950s, to Venus and Serena Williams being scrutinized and ridiculed throughout their careers, black players have consistently faced challenges that went beyond the game itself. And in this case, Ostapenko's words weren't just a personal insult. They tapped into decades of painful history. And Naomi wasn't finished. She hinted that this wasn't even the wildest thing Ostapenko had ever said, implying a pattern of questionable behavior that only fueled the backlash further. Then came another twist. Lip-reading experts online slowed down the footage and broke apart the exchange at the net. Their findings were even worse than what was broadcast. The no education, no class comments were only the beginning. According to them, Ostapenko hurled more personal insults, words sharp enough to cross lines that no professional should ever cross. While social media caught fire with every new revelation, Taylor Townsend stayed focused on her game. She walked back onto the court for her next match, this time against the world's number 5 seed, Mira Andreeva, the teenage sensation everyone expected to bulldoze the draw. But Townsend, still carrying the weight of the scandal, came out fierce. Dressed in an outfit emblazoned with painted flames, she explained afterward that it symbolized a phoenix, rising from the ashes, stronger through adversity. And fittingly, she won in straight sets, 7-5, 6-2, proving she wasn't just surviving the storm, she was thriving in it. Just when it seemed the saga couldn't get wilder, Ostapenko tried to walk back her words with an insincere apology. Was it to heal or just save face? Stay tuned, the scandal runs deeper. Ostapenko's hollow apology and the firestorm that rocked tennis. Here's where the story takes a sharp and uncomfortable turn, because what happened next wasn't just about tennis, it was about politics, image, and the brutal reality of how sports organizations handle scandal. The WTA and US Open officials suddenly found themselves in the middle of a storm they couldn't easily control. On one hand, the evidence of unsportsmanlike conduct was undeniable. Cameras caught it, microphones captured every word, and the entire world had already replayed it thousands of times online. On the other hand, Ostapenko wasn't just any player. She was a former Grand Slam champion, a seeded star, and a name that pulled in viewers and sponsorship dollars. Normally, that kind of status buys an athlete some protection. But this time, the backlash was immediate, furious, and impossible to ignore. Social media lit up within minutes of her outburst. Fans weren't just disappointed, they were outraged. The clip of her comments spread like wildfire, crossing over from tennis circles to mainstream news and even trending outside the sports world. Tennis lovers of every background, black and white, American and international, called out her words as racist and indefensible. Commentators weighed in, former players condemned it, and even casual observers who don't usually follow tennis were suddenly invested in the scandal. And then came Ostapenko's attempt at damage control. 3 days after the meltdown, she finally broke her silence with what can only be described as one of the weakest apologies the sport has ever seen. She posted a short Instagram story claiming her words had been misunderstood. According to her, English isn't her first language, and when she repeated "no education," she supposedly meant tennis etiquette, not actual intelligence or schooling. But here's the glaring problem with that excuse. She said it 3 times, not in a moment of confusion, not by accident, but with crystal clarity, in front of thousands of fans and live cameras. And let's be honest, Ostapenko has been playing on tour for more than a decade, giving countless interviews and writing posts in English without issue. Fluency has never been a problem until suddenly she needed a shield for her words. Worse still, her apology avoided the very heart of the controversy. She never mentioned Taylor Townsend by name. She never offered a direct apology to the woman she insulted. She never acknowledged the racial undertones that had people talking in the first place. It wasn't an apology. It was a PR stunt, a carefully worded statement designed to quiet headlines without taking responsibility. Townsend, however, wasn't fooled. When asked by reporters if she had seen the apology after her doubles victory, her response was sharp but graceful. She said she hadn't seen it, hadn't heard from Ostapenko directly, and honestly didn't care because she was too focused on her tennis. And then, in just a few words, she cut to the core of the matter. That's nice that she did that, but I really hope she learns that it's better to just focus on yourself. Translation. Townsend knew the apology was meaningless. She knew Ostapenko hadn't truly learned anything. But instead of wasting her energy on drama, she showed the very class she had been accused of lacking. While Ostapenko spent the rest of the tournament battling headlines and criticism, Townsend kept winning. For the first time in her career, she powered her way into the 4th round of a Grand Slam singles draw, making her performance the true headline. But this clash wasn't just about two athletes. It forced tennis to confront its deeper issues. For decades, black players have been policed differently in a sport that prides itself on being gentlemanly and polite. They're expected to smile through insults, remain calm under provocation, and show restraint in situations where white players are celebrated for fiery passion. Serena Williams lived through it for years, branded aggressive for behavior that was praised as competitive in her white peers. Venus Williams had her intelligence questioned, despite proving herself both on and off the court. And now, Townsend, an accomplished athlete, multilingual, educated, and entrepreneurial, was publicly branded uneducated by a rival who simply couldn't handle losing. That's why the outrage was so loud. The words carried history, stereotypes, and a sting that went far beyond the court. Intentions aside, the damage was done, and the tennis world was forced to react. While Ostapenko may have tried to downplay the scandal, what about the fallout she couldn't escape? Stay tuned because the real drama begins when we talk about the consequences of her action. Taylor Townsend's rise and Ostapenko's fall. The tennis world didn't hesitate in showing where its loyalty stood, and it wasn't with Ostapenko. Players, commentators, and fans from every corner united in support of Taylor Townsend, making it clear that this kind of behavior would not be brushed aside. Social media erupted with anger, tournament officials faced mounting pressure to act, and the WTA's own code of conduct suddenly felt like a spotlight waiting to fall on Ostapenko. Even without an official suspension, her reputation has already taken a crushing blow. The backlash exposed what many in tennis have whispered for years. Since her dazzling French Open win in 2017, Ostapenko's career has been marked less by brilliance and more by inconsistency and outbursts. Instead of building her legacy, she's become known for meltdowns. And now, this ugly episode cements the narrative. Sponsorships and prestige don't flow toward players who can't handle pressure with grace, and this incident only deepens the cracks in her public image. In stark contrast, Taylor Townsend is thriving. At 29, she's playing with the confidence of a woman who has fought for everything she's earned. Her doubles success has given her stability, but it's her singles resurgence and the dignity she displayed in this controversy that has captivated fans. Articulate, relatable, and unshaken, Townsend embodies the kind of story tennis desperately needs. With Serena gone and Venus nearing the end, the spotlight is wide open for new American icons. Coco Gauff and Jessica Pegula may lead the charge, but Townsend's journey, from setbacks to motherhood to redemption, adds a different kind of inspiration. What brands, fans, and the sport itself see in Townsend is simple: resilience, grace, and authenticity. And in today's game, those qualities can be just as powerful as a thunderous serve. And that's where things take a turn no one expected. So, what do you think? Was Ostapenko's outburst pure frustration or something deeper? Drop your thoughts below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more.